The following is brought to you by Bleacher Report. If you guys want to check out my live post-game reaction show, make sure to have the Bleacher Report app downloaded and ready to fire up right after the game. You'll find me in the Chargers section. Bolt up.
Yo, to Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, we got another game to cover in preseason. Week 2, Chargers taking on the Los Angeles Rams. And we learned a lot this week. Honestly, it's hard for Chargers fans, NFL fans in general, to look past a score of a losing game and look for some of the good, even in a preseason game. You can even talk about that in the regular season sometimes. But in the preseason, I feel it's especially important to try and learn something despite what the score or the win-loss column may read. This week, the Chargers did drop this game 13-9 versus the Los Angeles Rams in an effort that I would say looked better than last week, but still gave me a lot of concerns that continued over from last week as well. The first thing that I did want to go over, and it's going to be the first thing I think a lot of Chargers fans want to hear about in terms of a reaction or an opinion to this game, is Easton Stick. I got to tell you, man, I like Easton Stick, the personality, right? He reminds me of a close friend of mine. Dan, you know who you are in the Fantasy Football League, man. He seems like a good guy, right? But Easton Stick doesn't feel like the appropriate backup for the Chargers at this point. There's a certain part of this game that I feel like he committed an unforgivable act. And I don't know the ins and outs, the details. Maybe it was bad on the center's part as well or whatever. But the Chargers were driving in what looks like a very healthy offensive possession for the Chargers. They were running the football great. The passing was okay. It looks like they were about to score. The Chargers, 3rd and goal from the 1-yard line, line up in I form, getting ready to pound that sucker in, show us what this Greg Roman offense is looking like. And Easton Stick fumbles the snap, turns it over, and the Chargers miss out on a very valuable opportunity to see what this offense looks like in a 3rd and goal situation to try and score. It's one of those things that I cannot digest very well. You know, it's a very basic fundamental of playing quarterback, handling the snap, keeping your eye on your ball, keeping control of the ball before making the exchange. And that lack of concentration cost the Chargers not just points in this game, which, yeah, definitely could have led to a win, but more so the opportunity to evaluate this team in that situation. Because this team is built to handle that situation better than most. They're going to be leaning on, a fullback, heavy running back combo in those goal-to-go situations more often than not. The Chargers of the past, you'll see them slinging it all over the place, hitting a fade to Mike Williams, trying to go underneath to Austin Eckler. This is not those Chargers. This Chargers revolves around running the football. And to see the Chargers and what they need to work on and what their success rate might look like, they need to be able to execute something as simple as snapping the football and handing it off to your running back or fullback or whatever it may have been for that attempt. That was something that did unfortunately rub me the wrong way a little bit. I'm sorry. It's one of those things that if I were, Jim Harbaugh, just a fan, in the sidelines or whatever, I was like, ooh, Easton, that is one of the unforgivable cardinal sins, man. You cannot fumble the snap at the 1 with a football team that wants to run heavy in I form goal-to-goal situations. Like, that cannot happen. And to me, it was an egregious enough sin that I thought maybe we would see Luis Perez in the very next follow-up possession. But of course, we did not. We saw Easton Stick get to fairly play the entirety of the first half, which, for the lack of a better term, was unspectacular. Easton Stick would later on overthrow a Simi Fehoko, which Fehoko, it looked like he was trying to disrupt the trajectory of the ball because he knew that there was a defender behind him, and that ended up being a tipped pick, right? Very little that Simi Fehoko could do, and just kind of a poorly thrown ball by Easton Stick in a situation where it felt like the dude had a lot of time, right? There was time to throw. There was time to make a decision to escape the pocket or, try and hit Simi Fehoko, who's uncovered besides the guy behind him, 5 yards in front of you. What happened? What happened, Stick? Come on, man. Oh, that one hurt my soul as well. And unfortunately, I do have to credit a part of this loss, a big chunk of it, as a matter of fact, to the turnovers of Easton Stick this week. And that's one of the things that carried over from last week that, I wasn't too spectacularly stoked about. I was like, man, the Easton Stick situation is probably a bit more serious than a lot of us give it credit for. Now, in the defense of the Chargers coaching staff in the second half, we did see a lot of Luis Perez starting the second half, playing throughout its entirety. And even from the first play, Luis Perez, I think he hit, who was it that he hit deep out there? I don't remember the receiver, but he hit like a 20-yard pass his very first play in the second half. It was awesome, right? Help me out, chat. Who was it? It was awesome. Perez, he, to me, right now, does stand out as the better quarterback on the roster. Sure, he didn't score a touchdown. Sure, it could have been better in a lot of different ways trying to convert. That line wasn't doing him any favors, especially in the second half either. But as of right now, it feels like between those, it was QJ, nice. Between those two quarterbacks, it feels like Perez is probably the front runner for QB2. But here's my question for y'all out there. Do you feel good about either one of them at this point? Chargers fans, I know, are not super happy with Easton Stick right now. We got a good sample size of him last year, playing in Justin Herbert's absence. Now a couple of games into the preseason, kind of feeling the same way, kind of lackluster. Now this new guy, Perez, comes in. He does look better. He's got this cool gun slinging style of passing to him. He's got really good, ball placement, a good arm. But ultimately, it's is it cutting it? You know what I mean? For QB2, are we happy, with where that is? Do we need a little bit more time with Luis Perez to make that kind of decision? Maybe he could end up being the guy for all I know. Me personally, though, if I were to be transparent with you guys as what the Chargers QB2 situation looks like, I think we need another body in that room outside of what we got on the roster already, right? Max Duggan didn't see any snaps today. I think it's very unlikely that he's really in the conversation for QB2 at this point. I think the Chargers, if they are serious about wanting to address that position, if they really do want a competent backup, not just to back up Justin Herbert, but to also be the guy practicing, versus your second string, giving him some quality reps out there, right, in practice, then you're probably wise to go out there and make a move for a quarterback. GM Joe Ortiz, has been kind of making more moves than we're used to in the offseason so far. Maybe another quarterback is in the works here. I don't know. Maybe we go out and trade for, Huntley. Maybe we pick up Ryan Tannehill. I know a lot of Chargers fans want to see that happen. I just feel like the comments of a Jim Harbaugh, what was it, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, in which he was challenging the quarterbacks to step up. Someone needs to challenge, and he's to say, I don't remember exactly what the quote was, but he wasn't happy with the quarterback room. I think that still speaks loudly today after the 2 weeks that we've seen in preseason. Chargers offense at times looks like it was working, right? Especially today. The run game was starting to pick up. The momentum, the tempo was starting to become apparent, but the lack of quarterback play robbed us of what could have been more film to work with of the offense come practice on Monday, right? The lack of quarterback play didn't help the tempo, didn't help in terms of turnovers, obviously, didn't help give us the kind of reps that you would want in terms of building upon and learning upon and studying when you make your way back to practice on Monday. And that, to me, could begin hurting the team in some way. There's guys out there that maybe it didn't hurt as bad, right? Kamani Vidal, a guy that I wanted to bring up in today's reaction tremendously because he looked good to me. Sure, there was a couple of plays here and there where it's like, I getting 1 yard, you're getting blown up. Line's not looking too great. He looked like the kind of running back, though, for a majority of the game that this offense needs to operate. And that's where I felt some of the best tempo began to accumulate, was when Kamani Vidal was in there running hard, getting quality blocks from this weird, last-second signing in Tucker Fisk, right, the new tight end out of Atlanta, right? He came from the Falcons. That dude looks awesome, right? He's going to be contending for fullback snaps. I think it's him and Jordan McFadden that are going to be competing for snaps at fullback, which is crazy. You got this, obviously the tight end's not too crazy, but this guard that's also been playing a lot of fullback for the Chargers. Anyway, he looked great. He looks great in this game and looked like a competent blocker. And when Kamani Vidal had a little bit of space to work with, it feels like the Chargers offense started to show signs, right? It started to give us a little preview of what the new Greg Roman looks going to look like. I liked it. Vidal, he worked. He looked good. He's a little compact cannonball kind of running back, and he was churning out yards and first downs, and again building that tempo. It looked great. I was very happy with Kamani Vidal, but that was despite the quarterback play, not because of it. And that's why I feel like the Chargers may be wise to take a look at guys like, in my opinion, Ryan Tannehill. And I think Tannehill would be an awesome signing. Gives you good insurance at backup quarterback, as well as quality reps in practice for your second team. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Again, who knows what happens? Maybe Luis Perez is the guy, right? At this point, I kind of don't feel that way about Easton Stick. I feel like we've got a good enough portfolio on him the last couple of weeks. Not just that, but the last season as well in those games. Either way, I feel like Jim Harbaugh recently told us if there was a quarterback controversy, he would let us know. I would assume at some point soon he's going to let us know. I don't think the Chargers are super happy with their quarterback 2 status right now. That's just me, though. That's just me. The insurance, but cost and cap. And that's the other thing, too, is the Chargers actually do have a nice little bundle of cap to work with right now, and it just gets better as the seasons go on, if I'm being honest. The Chargers are going to have a lot of money in the next couple of seasons. Backup quarterback's not a bad place to put some of that money. All right. We went over Kamani Vidal, Tucker Fisk. Good combo, good combination in terms of what we hope to see maybe even next week in week 3 of the preseason. A lot of teams like to roll out their starters for a quarter, sometimes a whole half in week 3 of the final week of preseason. And Chargers of the past probably would never do this, but the Chargers lately have been doing things a lot different. The signings have been different. We've been seeing players play that I didn't expect to play, like Ladd McConkey, who looked pretty great today. He only had the 1 catch for the first down, but he looked crisp running those routes. You picked up the first down when called upon. I'm excited to see more of him. But ultimately the Chargers could end up rolling out with more starters next week, and maybe we see a little bit of a preview of what this offense could look like with either or both of a Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, maybe Jordan McFadden at fullback. My point here being is I think this offense is going to have a hard time showing us shades of what it really is without 2 particular factors. The quarterback play, which I promise you, this team is going to look a lot different once Justin Herbert is involved. You put Herbert into this offense, it's a completely new ball game, okay? And the other thing is the running backs. It's crazy to say, but the Chargers' run game could be almost as important as the quarterback play this year in terms of what their identity really is, right? You need those big guys. You need Gus. You need JK. We already know Vidal looks pretty good. In order to kind of keep that balance and keep that chemistry of pass and run and that momentum healthy within this offense. And right now we don't have the quarterback play. We have the running back play sometimes. It's just, it doesn't feel like we're getting a proper preview because of the lack of talent at some positions at this point. Maybe next week we do. Okay. Another thing that I do think really did shine this week, especially in the beginning, was the offensive line. I think the offense as a whole did look better than last week, which again, not great because we have all these concerns still, but it did look better than last week. And I think one unit that did step up, at least in the first half, was the offensive line. I felt better about the offensive line in terms of, Joe Alt. He's out there looking pretty good, -1. I think it was a penalty. Some of the interior guys looked a little bit better, even in terms of, backups. That's something that's also extremely important in this particular offense. This team is going to utilize offensive line differently than a lot of other teams in the NFL. Jim Harbaugh himself has said that's the tip of the spear, for this offense, and we need to see those guys performing. Joe Alt is really turning a corner. He had another really good game this week, from what I could tell, and that's going to end up being a very important piece of the offense going forward. So it was good to see the offensive line stand up in the first half. Sure didn't look that way in the second half, but where it really did count, the Chargers did show up. We probably got to have another conversation in terms of backups, right? I don't think it's a bad idea to go take a look at Mason. What's his last? Cole. Oh my God, Mason Cole. Backup in terms of center. He played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was part of Jim Harbaugh's team in Michigan a few years back. Maybe not a bad idea to look at Charles Leno Jr., DJ Humphreys. Get some more competition back there in terms of offensive line because the depth is also going to be pretty important, but a better day for them this week. I will tell you, though, that we were definitely let down by the offense again. We definitely weren't happy with the quarterback play. But you know what? And by the way, that penalty that you're referring to, yes, one of them wasn't on alt, but very early there was one on alt, but then he got called for wrongly for another one later down the road. But yeah, he had a great week. One great thing that did carry over from last week, though, the defense. This defense is very surprising to me. I knew that it was going to look different, and I knew that maybe it's closer to average than it has been the past couple of years under Brandon Staley. But wow, have I been shocked to see how well this unit has been gelling over the past couple of weeks, man. It's looked awesome in preseason. It's looked awesome in training camp and joint practice. Like, they've looked great. Yes, it's all started at those edge position players. They've been looking great, really, providing the foundation and cornerstone of what that defense is ultimately going to look like. But there's guys kind of, shining all over the place. Dayan Henley looks awesome. He made a couple of big plays this week. The corners, my word, if there was one position on the Chargers defense where I was like, I don't know, I'm worried, I think we're going to get cooked out there, it was the cornerbacks. And they've been looking borderline great. Asante Samuel, we expected it. But this guy, Tareeb Still, the rookie, he's been looking great out there. The free agent acquisition and Christian Fulton, he's been looking awesome. And then today in particular, one guy that really stood out was Dean Leonard. Dean Leonard and JT Woods, these guys contending. JT Woods, by the way, getting some snaps outside corner. Pretty shocking. But Dean Leonard, he's looked as good as anybody out there. He made a couple of huge plays, including an interception this week, which has me thinking, what does the future of that outside position look like? What's the depth look like? I'm feeling a lot better now than I did 5 weeks ago in terms of what the Chargers DB unit looks like, what that room looks like. Of course, the safeties I had a lot of confidence in because of, of course, Derwin James and Alohi Gilman. The corners, though, all of a sudden, I'm like, let's get to work, dudes. Like, you got some guys back there. Of course, the Chargers have been signing everybody under the sun that needs a second chance in the NFL, right? Most recently, we got T.R. Tart, who we're going to talk about in a second. But Alex Leatherwood, we signed, who's not really working out. But you know who is? This guy, Christian Fulton. And I'm very happy to say that he looks like he's turning a corner in which he might live up to some of that potential when he was drafted so high by the Tennessee Titans. So defense looked great. That definitely carried over. Dean Leonard looked awesome. He was probably one of the players of the game this week. I will close out this live stream by also telling you guys we got ourselves an awesome free agent acquisition just a few days ago. To be clear, I didn't think he was going to play. I wasn't quite sure he was. I didn't even know he was in there until ways into the game when somebody in my chat said, hey, that's T.R. Tart out there making those big plays. I didn't even know the dude's number until well into the game. Number 90, T.R. Tart, new free agent acquisition, literally just stepped off the plane and onto the field at SoFi, was out there dominating this week. And I get it. He's going up against third stringers, whatever. He was showing up. And that gets me super excited about what this could mean for one of the biggest weaknesses that has been on the Chargers defense for a while. The interior of that defensive line has not looked good. We've been pretty bad for a minute now. You want a squishy run defense where you're going to rack up a whole bunch of fantasy points against a particular D, it's going to be the Chargers. The Chargers have been not good at run defense, the middle of that line in general, for a while now. T.R. Tart is the kind of signing that you need to see pan out if you're a Chargers fan. And it was so good to see him literally a day or two on this squad out there making big plays. He was constantly in the backfield, disrupting runs, really good run stopper. That's something that I didn't expect to see at this level, even in his first game a couple of days on the team. Good in terms of generating pressure. We may have a steal in T.R. Tart if he can overcome some of the reasons why he's getting cut all over the place to begin with. I don't know the case fully it was with the Houston Texans, but the Miami Dolphins recently let him go because of work ethic concerns. Dude was lazy or something like that, which I don't like, right? And in the past, that's something the Chargers wouldn't have touched with a 10-foot pole. But this year is different. Last chance Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, second chances, right? Let's see what we can make in resurrecting some of these careers. It's working pretty evidently for Christian Fulton. It may just work for T.R. Tart as well, because my word, he was an animal out there today. And I'm so excited to see him again. Number 90, let's watch him closely next week at what he does versus the Cowboys, because we may have an answer, folks. It's been a while. I think the last time I felt this good about interior defensive line in terms of the nose tackle, defensive tackle, was probably Linval Joseph. And that was a ways back. Okay, and he wasn't even spectacular. He was just solid. I think we got ourselves a pretty solid, once again, defensive tackle in Teair Tart. And it shows us that it's a different Chargers team. I don't think in a million years we would have touched Teair Tart in the Staley era and the Telesco era. Now the Chargers out here making some pretty big moves and hopefully helping these guys turn stuff around that in turn gives them a second shot in the NFL, but also value for us in terms of signing. So I don't know. Very excited about all that stuff. Looks pretty cool to me. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been the Director on Bleacher Report. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. Let us know in the comments section some of your favorite parts of this game. And I challenge you, Chargers fans. I get it. We lost. It sucks. Whatever. I challenge you guys to look at some of the good here. Despite the lack of QB play, despite the score, we saw some pretty great stuff this week, and it's things that we can build on. And honestly, some of the first shades in terms of a preview of what this team's actually going to look like come kickoff. The run game looked really good behind Kamani Vidal and Tucker Fisk, the new tight end, the blocking tight end. The defense looks awesome in terms of the interior play and the edge play, and even the DBs at this point. There are things to work with here. And once we get the starters in there, it's a whole new ball game. Get Justin Herbert and Edwards and all these other guys in there. I think we're going to be very pleasantly surprised with how well this Chargers offense operates in comparison to what we've been seeing in the preseason. We'll catch you guys next time. As always, bolt up and stay frosty.